UFC President Dana White made some comments about Muhammad Mokaev a couple weeks ago at a Dana White's Contender Series post-fight presser that completely flew under the radar. He openly admitted, we are canceling Muhammad Mokaev. We're going to take a look at the clip in a little bit. But he said, yeah, we're not re-signing Mokaev because we don't like some of the things that he says and we don't like some of the things that he has done. And I think it is completely hypocritical and ridiculous of Dana White, considering some things that he said in the past, that we're going to pull up the receipts in this video. We're going to expose Dana White for being a massive hypocrite. And this disgusts me, and this annoys me, and this should annoy you too, regardless if you care about Muhammad Mokaev or not. He's signed with a new organization now, Brave FC. I think he could come back to the UFC eventually. But this should piss you off regardless. Because week after week, day in and day out, Ultimate Fighter, Dana White's Contender Series, Dana and the UFC are signing trash can after trash can after trash can to fill up cards, endless cards week after week. The barrier of entry is going in the toilet for the UFC. And then meanwhile, they are refusing to re-sign Muhammad Mokaev, who's 23 years old, undefeated, getting finishes, 3 top 15 ranked wins, and arguably the #1 contender and arguably the best flyweight in the UFC. They're refusing to sign him. Meanwhile, we're getting Marcin Tybura versus Sergey Spivak as a main event. So that should piss you off, even if you don't care about Mokaev. And we're going to expose it all in this video because Dana has made himself out to be the biggest hypocrite I have ever seen. And I've been wanting to cover this for the last 2 weeks, but there was UFC 305, and then I expected there to be more coverage, and the media just went radio silent. Nobody's calling out Dana. There'll be no media pushback. A lot of the fans will just eat this shit up and be like, oh, Dana, thank you, Dana. I'm just a Dana White sycophant. We don't like Mokaev. He does bad things. Oh, my God. Meanwhile, it's not lost on me the fact that Dana's crying about what Mokaev has done while single-handedly saying, yeah, John Jones has got a dark side to him, and hyping up John Jones and his fucking German Shepherds. But let's jump right into it. We're going to start off with Mokaev's 304 post-fight presser. Just a couple clips from here. The reason I want to show you this, even though I showed it in my previous video around UFC 304, which I'll actually link down in the description, I highly encourage you to go check that out as well, is because one of these things he says here is a massive conspiracy in the UFC right now. It might be borderline illegal, and I also believe one of the things that he says here may be one of the things that the UFC did not like, so therefore they decided not to re-sign Muhammad Mokaev. And again, you may not like Mokaev, but do you really want the barometer for UFC contracts to be, yeah, we don't really like the things that he said. We don't really like the things that he did. That's what you want the new barometer to be in the UFC. That makes absolutely no sense. But let's jump right into it. Listen to what Mokaev says right here when he's asked about, you know, his future with the UFC and did they offer him a new contract. Listen to this.
In front, did they try to give you a new contract before this fight?
They said they're going to see how I perform. They don't want to see me keep shooting and taking somebody down, but
they don't want to see me shooting and taking someone down. If they are influencing the way fighters fight, that is crazy. That should be a much bigger story. And we have a little bit more information since this, which we'll get to in a second.
Done what I could do with like tonight, yeah.
They said they didn't like you shooting in there? Is that what they said?
Yeah, they don't like this because they tried to get rid of flyweights before and they don't want this kind of fight. But listen, I'm young. I'm still not in my prime. Like, if they want me to stand and bank with toe-to-toe with this, like, 30 years old grown man, I have to do what's best for me to win.
So you have a 23-year-old undefeated prospect who's primarily a grappler, who's being told to stand with his opponents because, oh, well, they don't like the flyweight division enough. How ridiculous is that? How ridiculous is that? And then the fact that he comes out and says this definitely pissed Daddy Dana and the entire UFC off. And Dana essentially denied it and also admitted it, which we'll take a look at in a second. There's a couple more clips I want to look at from this post-fight interview just to show how sad this is. I mean, listen to some of the things he says here. He's like, just my dream is to be the UFC champion. That's it.
No, I don't even look at other organization now. My dream is become UFC champion, and I'm doing everything. I was worried about my performance, not because like Manuel Capé or somebody in front. I was worried about my future life. If I didn't perform well today, if I lose, maybe UFC kicked me out, and I had a lot of pressure thinking about my future. I have to feed my family. I don't know what else I can do in my life apart from fighting in the best organization in the world.
If you're applauding this man not being re-signed to the UFC, there's something wrong with you. There's something wrong with you. And I know people are going to say, well, he admitted to sucker punching Manel Kape. We'll get to that a little bit later. But Manel Kape also cheap shot at him in the PI by headbutting him. Did the same exact shit. Are you calling for Kape to be cut as well? Are you calling for Kape to not be re-signed when his contract is up? That's what I want to know. Is there a double standard or not? And the last thing I want to show you from this particular interview is just the type of guy he is, the type of fighter he is. Listen to this.
Now I just fight anyone. When I was younger, just came to UFC after Cody Durden's. I called out Manel Kape and he said, who are you? You just came to UFC. I'm above ranking. But I was above ranked Manel Kape this fight, but I said I will fight him. So it doesn't matter to me who to fight.
I'll fight anyone. They asked him if you weren't given a title shot, are you willing to fight anyone else? He said, I'll fight anyone. I don't care. Don't care. Don't care what their ranking is. These are the type of fighters that we should applaud in the UFC. But instead, well, no, we don't like some of the things that he says. And again, I know people are going to bring up the sucker punch, and this drives me nuts. This whole sucker punch thing, first off, you do realize these guys fight in a cage for a living, right? Second off, I respect Mokaev for sucker punching Manel Kape. He said, Kape got me. I stayed silent on it. Okay? He never even said it. He never put it out publicly. Kape's teammate did. Okay? And then Mokaev said, I wanted to get mine back. I wanted to get mine back. He's not going to do that to me. I wanted to get mine back. And he openly admitted to it. Okay? And to act like that's some disqualification from the UFC is outright delusional when you have domestic abusers in the UFC currently. But we'll get to that more in a little bit. Next thing I want to take a look at is Dana White at the UFC 304 post-fight presser. He's asked directly about what Mokaev said. He denies the whole takedowns thing and then kind of admits to it and backtracks on it and then just basically shits on Mokaev and essentially says, oh, he's good to go. He's gone.
Drama. Like, you know, they had that run-in at the PI. They had that run-in at the hotel.
There was so much bad shit that happened in the behind the scenes with that thing. And, yeah. Yeah, not good.
Mokaev said that his contract is up, and he made this interesting remark that said someone at the UFC told him to stop shooting for these takedowns so much, and maybe he'll get this contract that he wants.
Look at his face. Look at this look on his face. He's pissed. So Mokaev said that? Better get him on a leash quick. Better get... Who does he think he is? We got to set an example out of him. We already didn't like him to begin with for other things that he said and did, apparently, that we don't know about. Now he's saying this as well. Look how pissed off he is right away.
Is that true, and do you think you'll bring him back?
Yeah, that's what we tell guys. We tell guys how to fight and tell them what we've been doing this for a long fucking time. I'm sure one of the matchmakers probably said something to him or whatever.
So he sarcastically admits to it, and then he kind of actually admits to it. Let's listen to that one more time very carefully because people miss this.
Takedowns so much, and maybe he'll get this contract that he wants. Is that true, and do you think you'll bring him back?
Yeah, that's what we tell guys. We tell guys how to fight and tell them what we've been doing this for a long fucking time.
So sarcasm there. Yeah, that's exactly what we did. We've been doing this for a long time. Sarcasm there. And then he literally says, well, the matchmakers probably said something to him.
I'm sure one of the matchmakers probably said something to him or whatever, but...
We're dictating how fighters fight now? Is that not almost rigging fights? That's craziness. That's a massive revelation considering the James Krause scandal from, what, 2 years ago now? Where guys are going in injured, there's crazy betting action on a certain fighter, and then the guy's basically out of there in the first round. You have Dana White and matchmakers dictating to fighters how they should fight. And Dana White admitted it right here. This didn't get more press. But that's not even what I'm talking about, because the clip that I'm talking about is a new clip from Dana White's Contender Series that we haven't even got to yet.
Yeah, the matchmakers aren't big fans of his for many different reasons, and not just there's a lot of people who shoot takedowns in this business.
They're not a fan for him, and not just takedowns.
You know, a lot of guys that fight with that type of style, but it's a lot more than just that.
But Mokaev is the guy that you'd want to bring back to the UFC because he said his contract is totally done now.
Yeah, he is. He's under contract. He's not under contract anymore.
Okay, but would you be interested in keeping him around in the fall?
I think the PFL is going to get a great undefeated guy.
Really?
Good luck to him.
So there's a lot of people been perpetuating the rumor, well, Mokaev's agent tried to negotiate with PFL. There's been no evidence to support that claim. Maybe Mokaev's teammate potentially talked to PFL or something. I mean, there could have been something that could have happened. But his manager is respected. A manager who manages, I believe, Israel Adesanya as well as Leon Edwards, who has a good relationship with the UFC. And there's no evidence to support that claim. And people are saying, oh, well, he negotiated with PFL. That's why they don't want him anymore. First off, the UFC does shady shit in their contracts all the time. So even if he were to do it, which, again, there's no evidence, it'd be like, okay, I understand. But at the same time, it's like, well, the UFC does shitty stuff with their contracts, a.k.a. freezing you out and not allowing you to fight when you try to fight out your deal. But there's more.
Yeah.
What about Manel? Because we saw, even before the fight even started, he was trying to run it. Muhammad Mokaev, the security had to get in there before the first bell even rang.
Yeah, because just so much dumb shit has happened. I mean, we couldn't even have a face-off. But it's the typical, it was one of those typical kind of fights. We've all seen this before over the years. Oh, I can't wait to get to you. I can't wait to get to you. Oh, I'm going to fucking kill you. And then 5 minutes and they don't do anything for the first.
By the way, Mokaev was actually fighting. Manel Kopp, I remember, we're 3 minutes into the first round, didn't throw a single shot. Mokaev is the grappler who was throwing head kicks and was striking nonstop. Again, I'm not saying it was a great fight, but I'm just saying to act like, oh, neither guy threw anything. Manel Kopp wasn't fighting at all. The guy who is headbutting people at the PI is not fighting at all.
First 5 minutes of the fight. I mean, it's just, we kind of figured that's how that fight would go. It's, you know, historically, that's how they go.
And last one on this, when you said the PFL is going to get an undefeated fighter, is that his fighting style? Is that he's asking for too much money? Why?
None of the above.
Okay, so elaborate. I just don't get why people give Dana a pass when he just gives these super vague answers. Oh, it's none of the above. It's not money. It's not this. It's not that. It's not the fighting style. Well, what is it then? What is it? Please, Dana, elaborate. And he kind of gives some vague answers here that make absolutely no sense.
Listen, for whatever reason, listen, the stuff that played out here over the last several months that started at the PI and other stories of, this breaking out, plus many other things. These guys.
Plus many other things. What specifically, Dana? Oh, so they got into altercations. That's the big deal now? That's what the UFC is now policing? Oh, there was a sucker punch thrown. Oh, they got into an altercation at the PI. Oh, you guys use that type of stuff to promote fights all the time. Now that's a big deal? Now that's a big deal?
These guys don't want to re-sign him.
So there you go. He tries to make it seem like, and a lot of fans have co-signed Dana, and are like, it's the out of the cage antics. He's causing all these problems. What problems has he actually calls for him? What problems? Oh, they got into an altercation. Oh, someone's got to break it up. You can use it to promote the fight. People were hyped for it going into it. People probably tuned into the prelims more because of it. You buried him on the prelims because of it, or not because of it, because you don't like him to begin with. It just makes no sense, and it's so hypocritical. You're like, oh, yeah. And the fans are co-signing this. Like, yeah, he's throwing sucker punches. He's doing this. He's doing that. Oh, my God. God forbid. And then you have people like Steve Ercek saying, yeah, I heard he's not treating people correctly. UFC staff. Well, what's he doing? What's he doing? Give some examples. You're just going to say, I hate when people say vague shit like that. Like, oh, was he rude to someone? So now we're not re-signing people because they were perceived as rude at one point in time to somebody? Like, we're literally not re-signing good talent while signing trash cans because of these types of vague answers. Oh, yeah, Mokaev's a troublemaker. Well, real quickly, just to expose this hypocrisy before we get Dana White on Dana White's Contender Series. What about this? What about this, guys? Jamal Hill arrested, charged with domestic violence for allegedly assaulting brother. Apparently, Jamal Hill sucker punched his own brother over Thanksgiving dinner. Okay, knocked his teeth down his throat in front of Jamal Hill's kids and his brother's wife. This is okay, apparently, allegedly. If he's found guilty of this, is he going to be cut from the organization? Is he going to be not re-signed? Oh, what about when Conor McGregor attacked a bus with women in it, causing them trauma, canceling multiple fights? Let's not even talk about the fact Conor McGregor has more rape allegations in the last 8 years than he has fights. Okay? Let's not even talk about that. Definitely more than wins. Okay? What about most recently? Brendan Allen, Marvin Vettori. hitting each other in the casino lobby. Dana White's cracking jokes about that one. What about that? We going to do something about that? Oh, what about Sean Strickland and Dricus du Plessis? Oh, you're definitely not going to use this to promote. There's kids in the way, and you're having physical altercations in public at UFC events where there's kids involved. Okay, so are we going to campaign? And again, Manel Kopp, cheap shot at Mokaev originally. Are we cutting Kopp as well? The hypocrisy knows no bounds with Dana. He's just using this as an example. And the reality slipped out at Dana White's Contender Series right here. Because this slipped under the radar, and I don't know how nobody was talking about this. Dana admits openly here, essentially, yeah, we don't like some of the things Mokaev said. So he's gone. Matchmakers don't like some of the things that he said. Imagine that's the new barometer that you're okay with. Let's listen.
And how the rivalries usually end up being not so good
right.
The fight. I guess people felt that way with the Mokaev-Kopp fight back in England, and we all know what happened with Mokaev after. But he went out and said that he'd fight for free to get back in the UFC, as if since his dream. Did he ever go up to you guys and actually talk about stuff like that?
Of course, no.
Because that's his dream. His dream was to be UFC champion, and now his dream has been taken from him. And now, he's got to go. Maybe he can come back. Granted, I think he could come back to the UFC. I think you can make the argument he's the best flyweight in the world right now. I would pick him over Pantoja. Okay? I think maybe the guys like Kai Kara France and Urseg are bad matchups for Mokaev. I would pick him over Pantoja right now, and he should be #1 contender. Where's that Dagestani privilege now? He's willing to fight for free because that's his dream. Okay? And the UFC is saying, oh, we don't like what you have to say. Listen.
Nobody's going to fight for free. People can talk all the shit. People can talk all the shit they want about how we pay, but nobody's fighting for free. It is what it is. I always say this, that this is an opportunity to be here and to perform in front of the entire world. And,
this is an opportunity to be here and perform. What did Mokaev do? Tell me what Mokaev did here. Look, okay, let's say he has 7 finishes in his MMA career. And in his UFC career, he has 1, 2, 3, 4 finishes out of, I believe, 7 fights. 7-0 in the UFC. 4 finishes. Did he not perform well enough? Oh, Tim Elliott, Alex Perez, Manel Kopp, all ranked fighters. I think they're all still ranked. But if not, they were definitely ranked at the time that he fought him. He's arguably #1 contender. Did he not perform? 4 finishes out of 7 fights. Okay, the Manel Kopp fight was boring. That's the barometer of what we're releasing fighters for, or not re-signing fighters for?
He's just a guy that did everything wrong and pissed these guys off. I wasn't involved in any of the stuff that happened with him, but the matchmakers and Hunter were, and they weren't happy with him. They weren't happy with the way he acted. They weren't happy with a lot of things he did and said, and
They weren't happy with a lot of the things that he did and said. That's what we're basing UFC contracts on now. It's not like we're talking about some serious criminal charge. We're talking about grown men not liking what another grown man says or does with no actual examples. If they say, oh yeah, we didn't like the way he was treating some female employees. Hint, hint. Okay, I can understand that. But the fact they're not coming out and saying it just tells me right now that he stood up for himself. In some situation, he stood up for himself. That you can't say he's ducking fights. He's fighting all the top contenders. You can't say he's asking for a lot of money because he's saying, look, this is my dream. The only thing I can think of is they tried to re-sign him for a shit contract 2 fights ago. He says, no, I want to fight out my contract and then we'll negotiate because I'm confident in myself. They don't like that. And then he goes to the post-fight presser at 304 and says, yeah, they told me to grapple. They told me to grapple, and that's why I didn't shoot any takedowns, which day by day is having more validity to it. And this counteracts exactly what Dana White has said in the past. But let's rewind that and listen to it one more time. Let's listen to that one more time.
With him, but, the matchmakers and Hunter were, and they weren't happy with him. They weren't happy with the way he acted. They weren't happy with a lot of things he did and said. And, I guess you can look back now and regret it, but you did it. You did it, and you put yourself in this position.
You put yourself in this position. God forbid you say anything. This actually is reminding me of something. What happened to free speech, brother? What happened to I don't put a leash on any of my fighters? Oh, I just happen to have that clip right here, ready for you guys. Because Dana White spoke on it. Our fighters are free to do whatever they want. They're free to say whatever they want until they try to stand up against the UFC, until they say something the UFC doesn't align with or Dana White doesn't agree with. Then all of a sudden it's some issue, okay? Then all of a sudden it's, yeah, he shouldn't have said this. He shouldn't have done this. We'll use every altercation and every brawl to promote any pay-per-view. You know, we don't care when, you know, Sean Strickland's throwing out, you know, homophobic slurs. And I'm not saying they should. I'm not even advocating for them to punish these guys. But it's so hypocritical to say, yeah, we didn't like some of the things he said and did without giving any actual examples of something significant to the point he should not be on the UFC roster. No examples, nothing. Just, oh, yeah, we don't like some of the things he said. And this just counteracts exactly what he said at UFC 297. Listen to Dana White's visceral reaction to a simple question from a media member here.
Dana, I just want to go back. You were talking about, like, you obviously give a long leash to your fighters about, you know, what they can say when they are up there.
By the way, nodding his head in agreement. Yeah, I do give my fighters a long leash. Essentially, we give them a lot of freedom, you know. Obviously, there could be some extremes, but Dana's nodding his head along in agreement.
With a UFC microphone, and you are getting into territory of homophobia, transphobia, like, is the...
Boom! Dana's now pissed. Dana's now pissed at this guy. This isn't the point of it. Dana's rant is the point of this.
I don't give anybody a leash.
Well, I'm saying you...
A leash?
Like...
Free speech. Control what people say?
You want to control what people say? Well, Dana, according to this clip right here, it sounds like you do.
And they weren't happy with him. They weren't happy with the way he acted. They weren't happy with a lot of things he did and said. And you know.
Yeah.
Going to tell people what to believe. Going to tell people. I don't fucking tell any other human being what to say, what to think, and there's no leashes on any of them.
Unless you say something that does not align with Dana White or the UFC, then you will be not re-signed. Doesn't matter if you're undefeated. Doesn't matter if you're 23. Doesn't matter if more than half your UFC fights ended in finishes. Doesn't matter if you're number one contender. There's a leash on you. There's a leash on you, and now we're getting rid of you because we don't like things that you say. This is craziness.
What is your question?
I was asking that question. I'll move on, though.
Yeah, probably a good idea. That's ridiculous to say I give somebody a leash.
It's literally just a saying. I've covered this. People were like, oh, yeah, Dana owning the media. It's a simple question. He meant, Dana, you give a lot of freedom to your fighters. At what point do you draw the line? Because in the past, you have. I actually exposed him back then as well. I have no problem with Dana saying, look, it's impossible to police everything these guys say. They're fighters. Okay, I can't police everything. In the extreme case of something crazy, maybe we'll step in and there'll be some type of punishment like we've done in the past with Nate Diaz, Matt Mitrione, so on and so forth. But yeah, he just had to get pissed because the guy threw in the things about homophobia and whatever else he was saying. And then he goes on more here.
Free speech, brother. People can say whatever they want and they can believe whatever they want. And I don't think there's any... We had two...
He was going to say, I don't think there's any homophobia.
Women who fought in the co-main event. They sat on the stage with Sean Strickland. They could give a shit what Sean Strickland thinks.
Actually, this doesn't really apply too much. But this is one of the funniest things Dana ever said. Hold on, let's watch that back again. Listen carefully.
And I don't think there's any...
So if he would have finished his sentence, I don't think there's any homophobia. And then this is what he has to say.
We had two gay women who fought in the co-main event. They sat on the stage with Sean Strickland. They could give a shit what Sean Strickland thinks or what he says or what his beliefs are or what his opinions are.
He says, we don't have any homophobia because we had two lesbians sit on the stage with Sean Strickland. That's a non sequitur. That makes absolutely no sense. It means nothing. But again, Dana says, we don't give these guys a leash. I mean, we have evidence in the past that they do, but that is completely different from what now he's saying now 2 weeks ago. Oh, the matchmakers and us didn't like some of the things that he said and did. So it looks like you decided to pull on that leash and get rid of Mokaev. Luckily, Mokaev signed with Brave SC, who he fought with before, and there's the potential that he could come back to the UFC. I mean, if you look at him, he's 23 years old. He's 24 now, apparently. His birthday was just recently. Happy birthday, Mokaev. He's 24 years old now. He's undefeated, 12-0. And we're getting rid of this level of talent because you don't like some of the things he says. And I'll end with this, okay? The UFC told me not to grapple. There's a rumor about Carl Williams. Carl Williams does nothing but grapple. Fought Hanato Janiz, I think is how you pronounce his name. Didn't grapple till the 3rd round. Got a takedown easily. There's the first shot he took, basically. And then it came out afterwards, allegedly, that he was told not to grapple. Then more recently, and this isn't as great of an example, you have Caio Borralho not shooting a single takedown on Jared Cannonier, and then afterwards, after he wins, he's visceral. I'm not a grappler. That's what he's saying as soon as the bell sounds in the 5th round. Like somebody spoke to him like, hey man, we don't like the grappling shit. Get that grappling shit out of there. Is this MMA or is this boxing? And now the UFC and Dana White are trying to put their finger on the scale to basically make the fights more exciting and more casual friendly to basically pump up profits. Is it a sport or is it not? That's something I think needs to be exposed more. And I would love to hear fighters speak out on that more. But watch out. Let's see if Carl Williams gets cut next. He just lost his fight. They can cut any fighter after any loss. So we'll see. But I just think it's so hypocritical for Dana to say, yeah, we don't give these guys a leash. And then at Dana White's Contender Series, he said, yeah, we let Mokaev go because we didn't like some of the things that he said. And then nobody talked about it. The MMA media didn't cover it. So luckily I finally got around to it. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Hopefully Mokaev comes back after a couple wins in Brave FC because I do think he's a very talented fighter. And he's still young, so realistically he could reel off a couple wins there, come back. The UFC could be like, we're giving him a second chance. And then Mokaev's just going to have to realize, I can't say anything. Don't want to piss off Daddy Dana. And then hopefully we actually see him fight in maybe a title fight in the flyweight division. And that's the craziest thing, is the flyweight division isn't that stacked, and they're cutting a #1 contender. Crazy. Or refusing to re-sign. Sorry, I'm saying cutting. That's simply not true. Refusing to re-sign him. Makes no sense to me. Let me know what you guys think. Like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel, and thank you so much for watching.